Good day to all of my listeners out there. I'd like to welcome you back to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And my name, as your host, is Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And for my new listeners out there, this podcast are about individuals who really are ready to do something different in their lives. They're feeling a little unsettled, a little stuck. And so, what this podcast does is support individuals in moving forward and living a life of, I'm sorry, that's my dog hollering if you can hear him in the background. Just moving forward and living your best life on your terms. And we talk about topics related to business and personal development. And this will also enable you to have some self reflection on this. So, today, our topic is titled Questioning Your Thoughts. And who better to talk about that with us today is Mette Reebirk. And I'm going to introduce her and bring her on stage. Good day, Mette. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. Hope you too.
Yeah, I am. If I can get my fur baby to be quiet for some reason, just howling right now. But anyway, my guest, my listeners, I want to read a little bit of Mette's bio so that you can get to know what she has done, what she's all about before we get started asking questions. Mette Reebirk, she's an inspiring author and executive coach. She has dedicated over 2 decades to helping experienced leaders realize their true potential and free themselves from anxiety. She has a new book. The book is titled The Tipping Point. Life Force comes from questioning your thoughts, reveals how we can set ourselves free by questioning what we believe to be true. So, Mette has come to see that for all, the human life force emerges when inner peace reveals itself by questioning our thoughts about reality. Wow, that's interesting. Realizing your true potential. And I'm loving this title about questioning your thoughts. Mette, I like to know, and my listeners usually like to know, before you became a coach, what was your backstory? What was your life like before you started this business?
I was, a corporate woman with leadership positions, working the butt out of something, and never home, always busy. 3 kids, a husband who always, took care of the house and everything. And then I got fired.
Oh,
And I commuted 4 hours every day. So at that point, I was so tired of corporate life. So I decided to start my own small company,
mm-hmm.
not really knowing doing what, but I got
Yeah.
a golden handshake. So I hired someone to make a homepage, a website.
Oh,
And then I was invited to China to build up something in China for a huge Chinese company,
mm-hmm.
and that was also very exciting. But when you are starting up something and not really knowing what is everything, how am I going to earn money?
Mm-hmm.
You also need to be a little creative. So when I was approached by a headhunter who asked me if I would consider being a headhunter, I said, okay, 3 days a week. Cash flow is very important. So you also need to be a little pragmatic. But then after very few weeks, I think I found out headhunting was a very boring job. But I got the opportunity to speak with a lot of very, very senior leaders who had been laid off. And they were all looking for a new title.
Yeah.
They all had a CV that looked alike.
Yeah.
And they had always been hired to fix a problem.
Mm.
And then I started to see how to enlarge their network so that they also could get to learn to know other kinds of industries, and how to help them start to train how to ask questions instead of always, having an answer to questions others have asked.
Okay.
Then how to help them share their insight, their knowledge. So my first book is Work Life Crossroads. Is about actually how you can connect your dots in new ways, based on my experience with all those leaders. Because when I approached them, I got to see that actually they had dreams, but they didn't really believe in them, and they didn't
Yeah.
really know how to make them come true. So I started to help them. I became their ghostwriter. I helped them get positions in startup companies, in advisory boards, and in board memberships. Um, and then I saw that the way they were thinking were very, linear.
Yeah. Linear.
So that was my first book. And then afterwards, a couple of years after, I started to think, how come that very, very successful people who have built up companies and sold them and, had really achieved a lot, they were so insecure. Maybe not upfront, but when you started to get to know them, they were very insecure about if they had actually been successful, regardless of whatever they had achieved, and whether their fathers are proud of them. And then I also started to question, to see, Mette, what are you worrying about? How are you thinking? So this thinking thing, what is a thought? What is an emotion? And how are they related? So I started a kind of research around that. And I found out that, people 2,000 years ago had always been interested in how humans are thinking. So it was not me being the first on the planet doing this. And then I gathered a lot of research and thoughts about this. And I got to see that when I believed my thoughts, very often I had a problem with my stomach. And I was fearful.
Yeah.
But when I didn't believe them, I was actually okay. So then I saw that thoughts generate feelings, and feelings are what we are reacting upon. We may believe that we are very rational, but the brain doesn't know anything. It's guessing.
Right.
And then I got to see that when we start to see what we believe to be true, this emotion of anxiety kind of vanish.
So, Mette, let me ask you, statistics, and perhaps you've done some research as well, but they said that we have 60,000 thoughts a day, right? And out of 60,000, like 80% of those are negative. So how do you get people to reframe their thoughts? What do you do with that? Because you talked about insecurity, and this is with your executive leaders. So it's just a gamut of people have insecurities. And that's something that you learned and realized. So how did you get people to, I think you called it reframe their thoughts?
Actually, the human being, we are amazing because our mind and our body, it's the most amazing app ever discovered. And every time we have a stressful feeling,
Yeah.
it's the body telling us that it's time to examine what you are thinking, because what you are thinking may
Okay.
not be true.
Okay.
So when we start to become aware of our thinking, and especially also the feeling we have, the heart beating, the stomach problem, maybe the shoulders, we know, okay, this is a sign
Okay.
to me about something I need to look into.
Okay.
And every time I do that, I see that the thought that generated this kind of emotion in me in the specific moment was just a story I told myself
Okay.
about reality. For instance, a lot of my customers, they are, executives being laid off. But
Yeah.
when they approach me, they have another story. The story is that, okay, we agreed with our board that it was time to move on, and we didn't agree upon the strategy. So I said it was better I leave now. But then the next meeting, they tell me, no, I got fired.
Okay.
And then they got fired. They got a year salary or whatever. Very often, very nice,
Severance package like they
yes,
get
yes,
paid.
yes.
Yeah.
And then also, they already knew it. Somewhere, they knew something is coming my
Yeah.
way. And actually, they hadn't been very satisfied for a certain time.
Right. Even with their current job, were they not satisfied?
No. People
Oh,
who get laid off in that level, they have seen it coming for a certain while. They
okay.
may have been blind for it, but somewhere in here, they knew it.
Wow.
No
That's
surprise. No
right.
surprise.
So laid off is the same as actually
Fired.
letting go is same as fired.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now, what led your customers to come to you? How do they know about Mette Reebirk?
In the beginning, it was, me writing and marketing it. But now it's, my customers talking with other in their
Okay.
network, and then they just come.
Okay.
Also because a lot of my customers, they may be, 60 or in the end of 50s.
Right.
And then they are afraid that they are too old to get a new job.
Yeah.
That's another thought you can have. And if
Yeah.
you believe it, then that is, your direction. I'm too old.
Right.
But that's just a thought.
That's just a thought. That's right.
Nothing more than a thought. And when you reach a certain level and become very aware of what's going on, see that just let go. It's a little like clouds on the sky. They come and go. But above the sky or the clouds, there you have a blue sky.
Yeah.
And it's like with you and I and your listeners, behind all the black thoughts and the bad feelings, there is a certain calmness.
Okay. Now, so the calmness comes from what exactly? The
It
calmness
comes,
they get.
actually, it comes before thoughts.
Okay.
When there's no thought, there's just, peacefulness, if
Okay.
that's a word that exists and not
Right.
me making up something here. And then when you become present, very often when we are worried about the future,
Okay.
and we are sad about, yesterday.
So worrying about the future, that creates anxiety.
Yeah, because you are afraid of two things.
Okay.
You are afraid of losing what you have and not get what you want.
Okay.
That's the two only things that you are afraid of.
Losing what you have and
and
not
not
getting
get what you
get what
want.
you want. Okay. Okay. So that is the only thing one can lose. You know, you had mentioned
Actually, the only thing that one can lose is the story.
is a story.
Yeah.
Okay.
For instance,
Elaborate on that.
your house.
Mm-hmm.
You do not own your house, even though that you may own it.
Uh-huh.
Uh, you manage it for a period of time
Mm-hmm.
until you let it go,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe move on. And when when you attach to something, you are not really attached to the thing, but you are attached to the story about the thing.
Mm.
And it's the same when, for instance, this when someone is being fired
Yeah.
and he loses his title,
Yeah.
then what he loses is a story
His story.
about himself,
Okay.
but it's just a story.
Right. So everybody has a story.
Yeah, and it changes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But when you believe those stories to be true,
Mm-hmm.
to be describing who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and you lose it,
Right.
then you of course will feel very, very vulnerable.
Okay. When you lose something, you feel vulnerable. It's
Yeah,
just like it's kind of like you can kind of go through a grieving process. Like when you lose a loved one, you can
yeah,
become vulnerable. If you lose a job,
yeah,
if you lose a home, a
yeah,
relationship.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right.
But when
You
you realize that what you that you can that you don't own anything actually.
you don't own anything.
No.
So if somebody goes out there and purchases a car and pays for it in cash, they don't
Mm.
own that,
Yeah, yeah. They have a car they can drive in,
right?
and you can say that they own it,
Right.
but it doesn't define them. They have a vehicle that can get them from A to B, and
Mm-hmm.
that's that. But what happens afterwards is that they get attached to this car.
Mm-hmm.
It's red. It's my favorite color, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a sports car. It makes me look good.
Mm-hmm.
Then they add a lot of levels on top of this,
Mm-hmm.
iron thing with four wheels and an
Okay.
engine.
Okay.
Uh, so, and if someone is, you have someone is stealing your car,
Yeah.
uh, and you are very much attached to this car, not only because it brings you from A to B, but
Yeah.
also because it makes you feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then suddenly you have not only lost a car, but also a part of your identity,
Mm-hmm.
and then it becomes very complicated.
So, in other words, am I correct? You know, for my listeners as well, you're not defined by what you have. Is that what you're saying? You're not
Yes.
defined. So, how would one define themselves?
If I ask you and your and the listeners now to close your eyes just
Mm-hmm.
for a short moment.
Yeah.
Mm.
Closing your eyes. Okay.
Mhm. Okay, super. I'm sure that you heard someone in your mind saying, "This is weird."
Right.
Another voice said, "Ah, come on, be a little positive, huh? Come
Mm-hmm.
along." And to be aware of those two having something going on, there needs to be a third one. Look at those two
Mm-hmm.
having something going on.
Mm-hmm.
So the one you are is actually the one observing.
Now say that again. What's serving?
The one, the who you are is the one observing what's passing. You know, from the when you were 5 years old,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing left from that time to today. Your cells have been, cycled so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Your stories have changed. Everything has changed so many times.
Right.
But something that has not changed is the one observing this whole kind of, different theater plays that have run over the years.
Mm.
So we are the ones who are observing this as this amazing life experience.
Right. But when you said like when you're 5, but do you believe like a lot things that happen in your childhood has a lot to do with your adulthood? So you bring it forward. Um, and bringing it forward can affect your emotions still until you deal with things. Like you can't kind of forget what happened in the past because a lot of it, your behavior can have a lot to do with your past. Do you agree with that?
Yes, but I also think that it doesn't need to be that way. We have all different experiences,
Right.
and some experiences can be very, very hurtful, very difficult,
Right.
and they can have happened several times over time.
Mm-hmm.
But a certain time they stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And if we keep on bringing all those, difficult things along and think about them for the rest of our life,
Right.
it didn't only happen a few times, it keeps on happening
Yeah.
in here, making our life very, very tough.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, and but it can be very, very difficult to let go of those kind of experiences, even though that you may want to,
Right.
because again it's a little like a title. An experience can be you are the victim. If I let go, it's a little like I accept something that shouldn't be accepted.
Mm.
So I don't say that it's easy, but
Yeah.
it's doable.
Okay.
But you need to become very aware of, again, you're thinking about reality.
Okay.
When I was almost 23 years old, my twin brother, he died,
Mm-hmm.
actually in the States.
Mm.
Um, and and I have now 3 kids, and they are around his age when he passed.
Yeah.
Um, and if I um, if I want to, I could make myself believe that maybe I will lose one of my kids at the same age.
Okay.
But I can also look at what's going on and saying, Mette, now you're telling yourself a story
Right.
which is totally out of,
Okay.
and regardless of what will happen, that
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in control of,
Mm-hmm.
all problems will always be dealt with in the present moment.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I will not become a better mom, a better human by worrying about
Right.
whatever.
Okay. So that's your mindset. So you have set yourself to as you indicated, if I think that my child will pass away because my brother did at the same age, then that's not true. That's not reality. That's my reality, but I don't have to think that way. So your thing
Mhm.
is getting people to change their thinking. That's why you're saying questioning your thoughts. So individuals that think about things that bring them those emotions that are unsettling, they should question what they're thinking so that they can get out of that mode of
Yeah.
those not so good emotions.
Yeah. And
Okay.
in that moment, everything becomes much kinder. You become a kinder person.
Okay.
And you, as a kinder person, when you meet your neighbor or meet your next, then you will meet those persons in a much better way. You will
Mm-hmm.
be a much better listener.
Okay.
You will be a much better leader. You will be a much better invader, much better parent, wife, husband. Um, and also because that's another thing, we don't meet the other one where the other one is. We meet the other one through the story we have about the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, we meet ourselves. And when we do that, and we don't get, we don't get the response we wanted from the other one,
Right.
then we take it personally. We become
Mm-hmm.
upset.
Mm-hmm.
But when we know that it was just because I actually met myself,
Mm.
then it's much better, much easier to accept the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, there we need to become aware of what is it that we are thinking about the other one. That actually also is a description about myself.
Now, elaborate on that. So you're saying if they don't meet your expectations, so to speak, um, how does that? I'm. How does you say you meet yourself? Explain that again.
Yeah. Um, for instance, my kids
Mm-hmm.
at a certain time, teenagers,
Yeah.
they just leave stuff on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And it got on my nerves. And I
Right.
tried in many different ways,
Mm-hmm.
very creative ways, to let them understand that they need to pick up their clothes,
Yeah.
because if not, it's not very respectful.
Okay.
And nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got to understand what's going on with our thinking, and especially my own thinking, and the stories I made up,
Mm-hmm.
that okay, if they don't pick up their socks, that is a sign that they're not respectful towards me.
Okay.
When I let go of that story and I started to pick up their stuff, after a little, because it was me who wanted it to
Yeah.
be picked up,
Mm-hmm.
okay, if I want it to be picked up, I pick it up. And
Okay.
then when I started to pick it up, slowly they started to do it themselves.
Oh, okay.
It was not because they were not respectful. They didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with being respectful or not. But that was my story. That was what I made, how I saw it at that time.
That they
In
weren't being respectful because they didn't pick their things up.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's again, in a workplace, someone is always coming too late, and we need to wait for him all the time.
Okay.
It's not respectful.
Right.
And then if we stop there and see that every time he comes in the door, he has this look in his eyes. So maybe it would be a good idea to make him a warm cup of coffee and ask him, are there anything we can help you with? And then maybe he will tell you that his family, he has a kid who has got a diagnosis, and his wife is maybe leaving him, and
Okay.
um,
And that's why he's late.
yeah,
Once you ask him why he's late.
yeah. But very often we don't reach that point because we are so busy making up stories about reality.
Right.
And that is how we see the world. We are 8 billion people here on this planet. And then there is also 8 billion realities. But
Okay.
we forget it. So when I think that my reality is just the same as your reality, and I don't get the response I would presume would be suitable for my kind of reality, then on top of having my own story, I also have to deal with you not responding the way I thought you would. And then I can put that into my story too, and me against the whole world.
Okay. So, what would you tell my listeners? Because one of the things you said that you help people realize their full potential. And, I have listeners that are ready to do something different. Within their heart of hearts, they know that perhaps they should get a different job. They should maybe let go of a relationship that's not working for them, or maybe they should start their business. And all of these things that they're thinking that would be more fulfilling for them, they're believing, but yet they're stuck and they're not able to do it. So, how would you help them realize their full potentials that will enable them to do something different, to move forward in their lives so that they can start living their best life on their terms?
Actually, be honest. Very often we think that the reason why things are not really, going our way is something outside of ourselves. Either it's my spouse, it's my boss, a lot of stuff outside of myself. But by the end of the day, they have nothing to do with whether you are feeling happy or if you are living your full potential. It's you. You have the full you are the one with the full responsibility towards yourself.
Okay.
So whenever you try to, tell yourself, that's actually a sign to yourself to stop up and say, no, it's me. And when and it's on the one hand, it's incredible lovely, because then there's only one you should ask, and that's yourself. But on the other hand, it's also a little tough because there's no one you can blame except yourself. And so I would, my advice is actually to be very, very honest, and write it down, put it on paper. The thought that keeps you away from doing what you want to do. And every time you tend to say that it's his fault, or you should, or write it down and turn it around. And then what is it that you should? I should.
So suppose they say, I'm not doing this because I have fear, I'm afraid, or I don't think I'm good enough to do this, or I don't think I have the skills to do that. Suppose that's what they're thinking.
Yeah. And all those thoughts, that will create very, very, stressful feelings.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sign to you that what you are thinking and believing
Mm-hmm.
is just a story you tell yourself.
Mm.
It's like, what is the name in English? A thermometer when you have fever and
A
you need
temperature?
to,
Mm-hmm.
the temperature.
The
Yeah.
temperature.
So every time you have this anxiety, you feel not good,
Mm-hmm.
not afraid of not being good enough and strong enough and whatever enough. That's like, take your body telling you it's a fever.
Mm-hmm.
Something is wrong. And what is wrong is your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it's not it's not very complicated. It is actually so simple that you may think that it cannot be true
Mm.
because it needs to be much more complicated.
Mm.
But it isn't.
Okay.
It
Okay.
isn't.
Okay.
Does it
Um,
make sense?
yeah. Yeah. So what you're saying is it's all about your thinking. Yeah. I mean, you just question your thoughts, and that's easy to say, but yet it can be difficult for so many people. But yet
You're
what you
used to
do,
it.
right? Um, and as you indicated, the name of your book is the tipping point.
Yeah.
Right?
Can I
Yeah.
can I show can I show it here?
Yes.
It looks like this,
Uh-huh.
and it's on Amazon.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and it's in English.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. Because tell my listeners where you're from. Where do you live?
I live in Copenhagen, the capital in Denmark.
Denmark. Yeah.
Yes, little
Okay.
Denmark
That's
in
why she said
Scandinavia.
English.
Yeah,
Right, right. Well, Meta, this has been a great talk. What I've gotten out of
lovely.
this is, it's all in your head. It's all about mindset. It's like questioning your thoughts. Like, for example, I have a book called Is Your Way in Your Way? It's a self-discovery guide for women who to learn how to restore themselves, learn from their experience, and be their true self again. And it took me years to write that book. It took me years because I didn't really know what to write. I was afraid. I didn't want to expose myself. I didn't want to people to know much about me. I didn't think people would be interested. And then all of a sudden, one day, it kept gnawing at me, and I went on and did it, even though I had those thoughts. Um, so everything does start with a thought, and I initially said 90,000. We have 60,000 thoughts a day, and 80% of those are negative. So, in order to get through that, you just have to be more conscious of what you're thinking. And if you are and you need help, what do you suggest people do when they need help with that? Contact a coach or,
Yeah, it's not. First of all, don't believe everything you're thinking,
okay.
and especially if you can feel that it doesn't do you any good, then
Mm-hmm.
for sure that you are telling yourself, a story which is not true.
Mm-hmm.
And linked with me on LinkedIn. I'm a very, very open-minded person, and I would
Okay.
love to share what I have to share.
Okay.
But be curious, and reach out to
Mm-hmm.
me or to others,
Okay.
or to Cassandra. Sometimes, when we say things loud, uh, we hear it
Mm-hmm.
ourselves too.
Okay. Right.
Um,
Right.
so,
Mhm.
yeah, be open minded and curious.
Okay. So they can get your book on Amazon. They can find you on LinkedIn and any
Yes.
other place they could locate you.
Um, LinkedIn will be,
The
that's
best way.
my platform.
Okay. Okay,
Mm.
Maddie. Well, I want to thank you for sharing and your wisdom and your insight. I'm sure my listeners will definitely think about what they're thinking when they get anxiety or when they tense up. They immediately think about, okay, what am I thinking? Why am I feeling like this? Because you also said something about people being angry. There's a reason why they're angry. Um, you had mentioned that somewhere. I read, why do we get angry? Didn't you ask that?
No, but that's a very good question.
Yeah.
And we get angry because, again, we believe something which is not correct.
Okay.
And that we can maybe, lose ourselves, and that is not possible. So again, a story, just a story.
Just a story. Okay. Yeah. Well, again, thank you to my listeners. If there's anything in this podcast that you believe there's value, please share it with individuals and realize that, again, questioning your thoughts is critical. Just question what you're thinking, and that may minimize some of the anxiety that you have. So thank Mette again, and my audience. I'm on this podcast shows every Wednesday at 1 p.m. goes live. And I thank you again. God bless and bye for now. Thanks again, Mette.
Thank you too.
Mm-hmm.